Hello, this is Corey. Me and my partner Jimmy for Project 2 worked on network analysis around S&P 500 stocks. And essentially what we looked at was stocks that move up or down together. We're saying a daily change of 3% either way, and two stocks moving that way denotes that they're moving the same way during the day. And we're showing those connections through a network analysis. So upload our packages, import the data here. You can kind of see we have the symbols, the date key. Again, I don't know if I mentioned this. This is taken over a okay, not what I want to do, guys. Okay. This is taken over a month period, September, so just last month. And you have so each day, the symbol, the close, previous close, the percent difference, direction of the stock, company name, the sector that they belong in. So 503 stocks, 21 trading days in September, looking at the uptrend. We have PVH had the most updates here. We look at the distribution of stocks that went up. Most of them, had roughly 1 or 2 days. Some maybe had none. Or I think all had at least one, it looks like, yeah. And then we look at the downtrend as well, kind of a similar distribution. Most had one, 1 or 2, maybe 3 days going down. So clean up the data frame, draw a bipartite graph, looking at the nodes and the edges. A little further down, you can kind of see some of the different network, how it's starting to break up into some of these different segments, values of the connections here. We use the island method to only start to consider only showing some of the more stronger connections that exist in the network. So that's what we're doing here in trimming the graph. And so then we start to see here some pretty strong connections, and the color of the graph is based off of the sector. And so here we can see, I believe it is, yes, based off the sector. And so here we can see, you got a few of the tech stocks down here connected. You got some other stocks in here connected, so you can kind of see the network of stocks that are often connected to one another. We do a neighbor count, eigenvector centrality. So this HWM, which I'm not sure. I'm going to check real quick what HWM is. Howmet Aerospace. Howmet Aerospace. So they're the most connected, and then some of these other ones are slightly less connected. And then I did some work here with the PyVis package, and I actually looked at up and down stuff, but you had to have moved either up and down at least 3 days to show the connection on this graph. And then I also colored it by sector, so we got most of the stocks on here. Once again, the connection had to be stronger, so we see some of the same patterns. Here we got like the tech stocks, NVIDIA, Apple, Skyworks, Adobe. So you see how they're kind of connected. Up here in this red segment, we have a lot of the energy stocks, and you should be able to see them here if I zoom out a little bit. Yeah, so energy, you can kind of see if I hover over something at the very top, it'll say this sector. So these are all the energy stocks here in blue. DXC Technology kind of in here. NVIDIA is connected to a lot. These red ones are materials. And I kind of noticed this was an interesting fit connection here between NVIDIA and International Paper. And they're part of different segments here. So we have information technology for NVIDIA. They make the GPUs and stuff like that. And then International Paper, they make materials, boxes, different things like that for Amazon. So but what I think this connection is maybe because these are just two very, very big suppliers for some of the really big companies. So that's kind of definitely a really interesting thing going on, that NVIDIA and International Paper move similarly so often. I mean, just a really strong connection there. And then, down here we have, what do we have here? Some communication stocks. I think Alphabet, I believe that's Google. Twitter down here, Alphabet here again. So they're kind of close. Google, Twitter. Netflix out here, kind of on the perimeter again. Some of these ones are real estate stocks. They kind of all fall in a very similar spot with one another. These pink ones are financials, so they, you kind of see the pattern developing there. The green ones are consumer discretionary, so I think that's a lot like clothes and stuff like that. You got Ralph Lauren. I think Under Armour's in here as well. Some different stuff like that. So it's kind of interesting. You go look out here. This is real interesting. We see Norwegian Cruise Line. Huge connection here with Carnival, so that makes sense. Royal Caribbean's out here as well. Coty, I don't know who that is, but just interesting, Fifth Third in Huntington, right? The two banks I use showing up right here next to each other. Raymond James. So it's just, it's super, super interesting how everything, comes out here. It's kind of interesting. We see Willis Towers Watson, and then they're next to Hewlett Packard Enterprise. And I think they're both kind of suppliers or consultants for some different companies as well. I don't think it shows up on this one, but Ion showed up right next to Willis Towers on another one, maybe with a little less connection strength, but that's another consulting firm for insurance. So yeah, you see, just a lot of these connections going on. You see Amazon right next to Microsoft. Activision in Electronic Arts, these are both, gosh, this is crazy, man. These are both gaming companies, EA and Activision. I mean, so it's just super interesting how those two come out right next to each other, because this is a big video gaming company, this is a big video gaming company, and they kind of share a lot of the same connections, probably connected to Microsoft, Amazon. So, and while these have some connection to each other, it looks like somewhat of, maybe a decent connection, but it's just they're connected to all of the same other nodes as well. So that's kind of why they're falling the same spot. So it's just really interesting stuff how, how these different things kind of pop out next to each other. Yeah, I think this is pretty cool. But yeah, and just thinking of this from, okay, what does this mean for an investment perspective? Well, you can look at some of these and understand correlations with one another. So you can start to see that a lot of these, perimeter stocks, and maybe some that aren't even mapped here, aren't heavily correlated with anything else in the market. They're not super correlated, so they're not subject to the same types of market volatility. The whole thing, don't put too many eggs in one basket, is kind of an interesting thing. But the thing is, these kind of look like eggs too. The thing is, if I put all of these eggs in my basket of these energy firms, that's not diversifying me that much. And you can kind of see that because they all are connected. They all move in the same direction, very, very heavily correlated and connected to each other in this system that the stock market is, where maybe I want to get, some over here, some over here. Maybe I'm looking for high performers out here that are really uncorrelated to the rest of the market but are doing well, because that might mean they're not subject to the same type of market volatility. So you can kind of pick and choose. And obviously you can extrapolate this and do other things, and there has been work done in this way of using this type of network analysis to pick stocks. This is really interesting stuff, but you just look at it. All right, what stocks are connected, or what companies are connected to each other, and in what ways? NVIDIA and International Paper, I would have never thought, but might just be because they're both suppliers for a lot of the same companies, and that's why they pop out so close to each other. So you just kind of see all these patterns emerging and who's connected to who and all that sort of stuff, and you could start to build a portfolio based off some of these things and avoid picking too many things that are kind of heavily correlated. And obviously, you see the S&P is kind of very diverse. A lot of things are connected, but it does have a lot of diversity of different stuff going on and a decently spread out network. So there is a lot of diversification that exists anyways. And that's why it's a good asset to invest in, and it's a market index and all that good stuff. But just to see the interconnectivity of all of them is really cool. And that is our project.